Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Executive, a place where entrepreneurs and investors share their life lessons and advice on how to make it at the highest level. Today we're really fortunate to be working with the Colorado Venture Summit, and we're here today with them. That's a conference where entrepreneurs and investors can really connect and talk about what they're building and hopefully eventually raise capital in this interesting environment that we're in. I'm very fortunate to be joined by Jennifer Henderson, who is the founder and CEO of Tilt, which is a really interesting platform that helps employees take time off work when life happens.
That's right.
So thank you for joining us first and foremost.
Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit, maybe we'll start off, just tell us about Tilt, how did it start, and what is it exactly?
Yeah, origin story of Tilt. Not that unique to many founders I'm sure you talk to because it was totally born out of personal experience. My background is 15 years in corporate America. I was always in operational roles for Fortune 500 companies, and I loved it, everything about it. Graduated early to take the management training program, the whole 9 yards. And in the early formative years of my professional career, I also went through 7 years of in vitro, trying to get pregnant with my husband. So all of that lack of control and frustration, I funneled to my career. So I doubled down on getting to the top of the 9 box and every stretch assignment I'd volunteer for and all the things. And then we got lucky. And after 7 years, we had a cycle that was successful and I got pregnant.
Amazing.
And when I announced I was expecting, all of those opportunities evaporated overnight. So I quite literally stopped getting invited to the table that I'd become so accustomed to getting an invitation to. At the time, with that journey to pregnancy, I was just elated to be expecting. So I turned the other cheek. And then 5 years later, a different company, different stage of my career, when I announced I was expecting with my second, my daughter, I had a promotion rescinded. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me that, quite honestly, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
And I did seek counsel. That is a very, very illegal thing to have had done to you. But what people don't talk about in pursuing that approach is you have to sign a release. Essentially, I could never talk about what happened to me again, and I'd get hush money, short-term payout, long-term, nothing was going to change. So I walked away from pursuing legal action, and I walked away from my career of almost 2 decades and the paycheck and the network and all the things, fueled by very little more than I was just really pissed off.
Yeah.
And luckily, I have a very supportive partner who said, if you want to take the leap and try to make this better, I support you. And so my first 2 years, I call them my analog years. It was not only what does and does not translate from corporate America. Pro formas are different than P&Ls, which I could read in my sleep, but pro formas are funny money. And so I had this whole different learning curve and all the Brad Feld books I can get my hands on to study this world of entrepreneurship. And in tandem, I needed to understand the problem space. So why had I experienced what I experienced? I knew I wasn't unique. I knew it had happened to so many other women in the world of work. And all roads kept leading back to leave. Leave was the impetus of really shit going sideways. So that's where I started to circle around how to do it better. And that was how Tilt started to come out of the earth.
So hearing that, how is Tilt solving for such a, I wouldn't even know where to begin with solving that kind of problem.
Right. So what my hypothesis was 12 of my early formative years were under the Starbucks umbrella. I had a front row seat to what operationalizing processes did for scalability. So you walk into a Starbucks in New York and you walk into a Starbucks in Tokyo, you get the same latte. That doesn't happen by chance. It happens because Howard Schultz was so magnanimous at operationalizing processes. So my thought was, well, if we can operationalize the way that leaves of absence are done and create a standard way that every single employee, regardless of who your manager is, what your leave is, et cetera, you all go through the same process, we're going to erode the probability of discrimination and bias. And we had one early customer who said, unless I hit the manager jackpot, it doesn't matter what my leave of absence policy is because it all comes down to the manager. So removing that lottery element of it by putting it into technology and allowing people to have the same experience was really the thought behind it.
Do you mind talking about how you put it into technology? Because it seems pretty complicated to do that.
Yeah. The inspiration then and now was TurboTax. So you look at a really fear-inducing, very complex, very jargon-laden experience like taxes, and there are so many similarities to leave. So you have FMLA, you have paid leave policies in 12 states now. You have your company paid leave program if you have that. You have short-term disability. You have all these different inputs to one particular leave of absence that result in over 70 different permutations of a leave. So it is ripe for technology because it is so codifiable and disparate. So what we do is we ingest all these inputs to one leave, and we let the technology do what it does best, which is determine, okay, this leave, this parental leave for this company means that this one employee gets these benefits from a job protection standpoint and these benefits from a pay augmentation standpoint. And this is how long they're protected, and this is how they can stack their leaves. So it creates almost the recipe for that one particular person. It really is a solution of one, and that's what the technology is so brilliantly oriented to do.
And what is it about the technology that, for the employer that they want this technology?
Yeah.
What's the benefit to them?
Well, we've never met an HR professional who likes leave. It's a very unloved part of their job, which we get. It's not only complex, but it's also really dynamic. It is changing all the time. And the risks of doing it wrong mean you get sued. Yeah. And like the basic price tag to a lawsuit around leave is $75,000. So it's very scary for an HR professional to try to navigate and keep up with, oh, the state of Oregon has this many leave weeks on their paid program. Well, now they have this many. It's untenable.
Compliance with leave in every state is different.
Every single one.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So they hate it,
Yeah.
and great for us. We love it. We live it. That's what we do. They're very oriented now more than ever in history to outsource it. So we want to help them. We get it. We know why it's an unloved job function in HR.
That's amazing. Are you able to quantify some of the results in terms of, because obviously it helps the employer. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who are probably hiring you.
Yeah.
But you're really working for the end user,
Yeah.
which is the people that need to go on leave and don't suffer because of it.
Yeah.
Are you able to see those results now that you're a few years in?
Short answer, absolutely. We have 4 main user profiles that interact with Tilt, so the obvious being the end user going on leave. And our goal there is to bring the human back to leave. If you take a leave of absence in most organizations today, you're going to get a 1-800 number. You're never going to talk to the same person twice. You're probably going to have to call 3 different people, so your short-term disability, your state entity, potentially your HR department. You really become a project manager of your own leave, and it's really cold and very archaic in our very biased opinion. So we make that better for employees, and we essentially want them to have a good experience so they come back. Retention is our ultimate goal with supporting the employee through a better way to do leave. The next user is the manager. So my story illustrates how managers can really screw up an employee's experience through leave, and you can inadvertently and very obviously ring bells that you just can't unring. When someone's going through a heightened emotional personal experience, they have a 7x lens of how they're viewing their employer. So if you say something to me that I perceive as being a hit on my emotional or relational experience that I'm going through, it's really hard to unwind that as an employer, and managers really hold the key to that. So we help managers in saying, here's what you can say and not say. Here's a way to help them while they're out on leave, and here's a way to help them return to work. And then the third is the HR professional. We talked about how much they dislike this, but also there's 20 to 25 hours per leave administratively that they're having to navigate. That's incredibly inefficient. So if we can take that off their plate and let them do the things that they love to do and help support their people, we're there for that all day long. Fourth is interesting. It's our payroll partners. So we calculate where the purse strings are essentially coming from for all the different parts of a leave. And payroll, similar to HR, is pulling their hair out, trying to figure out, for this particular leave week, where are you getting paid and how much from the state, from the short term, et cetera.
It's so complicated.
So we just give that to them. We've built that into our technology as well.
Well, clearly it's working. You
Yeah.
just raised additional capital in January.
Yep.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because it's not lost on the group that's here that's trying to raise more funds, and it's hard, right? Ever since I think it was April of 21 when kind of the markets shut down a little bit, it's been really difficult. How are you able to raise additional capital? What was kind of the key to your success?
Well, you're going to need a different word than hard because we have some compounding complexities here. So I'm a first-time female founder. Solo. I don't
That's
have a
what everyone
co-founder.
wants, right?
It's the best. It's competitive advantage through and through.
Right. Yeah.
So I've got the trifecta of kind of starting at a harder spot.
Yeah.
And then you add on to that this economic climate that we've been in. And to be in the alphabet now, there's 2%, right? There's 2% of venture funding that goes to women.
Yeah.
So it definitely feels as though you're pushing a boulder up a mountain. And this recent raise, I had the worst day of Tilt to date in almost 6 years now. It was just so incredibly stressful, and it felt pervasively as though there was this feeling of looking for reasons to say no, as opposed to the excitement and the generative energy of this is an amazing solution for the world and a real problem. So you just never really knew what the next day was going to bring in terms of a fund saying, we're just going to wait and see, or it was fine a week ago and now it's not. That being said, I am so excited about the fund or the raise that we did pull together and the new additions to our cap table. I'm one of those very rare founders, I believe, where I truly mean it when I say there's not one line on my cap table that I wish I could delete.
It's amazing. And it's hard to achieve.
Yeah, I'm very, very, very grateful for that.
And during this process, you're hearing no a lot. Mm-hmm. How do you be so resilient, right, during this period? It's a mental game, right? The last year, 2 years?
Yeah. Wine?
Yeah, right.
How do I focus on resiliency? Well, get knocked down 7, get up 8 is easy to say, harder to do. But when you have a visceral connection to the work that we're bringing into the world, and my visceral connection is my daughter, who I look at every single morning, and I've said many times I've given myself a clock till when she enters the workforce to have made this better for her. And that connection to the work that we're doing gets me through all the ups and downs. And I truly don't know how my fellow founders in this space do it by not having that type of a daily reminder. It has to be different.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
So we'll keep getting up.
What, you've been doing this for a few years now. I'm sure there have been some amazing things you've done, probably some mistakes. What have been some of the lessons that you've learned that you wish you would either have known or you want to share to others to potentially make a better decision or to do what you had done?
My answer to that question would be around the technology. So I'm a non-tech founder, and that has come with it a tremendous amount of imposter syndrome, if you want to call it that, as well as lack of knowledge of what exactly we need to do for the technology to be able to scale, to be able to ingest all these different components, as I spoke about earlier. And we started out with a dev shop, because I couldn't afford anything else. I bootstrapped this company for the first 2.5 years of its life, and that was truly all I could afford. And that got us to a certain stage and milestone. I could get on a stage and I could pitch with a clickable prototype, essentially. But then we went into the next stage and we needed to sell it, and then it needed to be usable for customers. And so that moved to another dev shop and then eventually offshore. So we went through all these kind of duct tape and Band-Aid stages of the technology that ultimately resulted in my current CTO, who's been with us for a couple years, having to unwind and reorient and organize a lot of disparate code and really set us back in terms of what he inherited and had to get put back together again. That I would have done that different from the jump, absolutely, positively. The technology I treated more as an afterthought in the early days, and it needed to be at the forefront.
So bring in someone more technical as a co-founder or whatever earlier on, and bring in internal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about something that you look back on and you're like, that was a really key decision for us as a company. I'm really glad we made that decision.
We dodged a couple bullets with, in hindsight, investors who were not aligned with our integrity. And those bullets dodged has resulted in me being able to say in truthful transparency that I love every line on my cap table. And that was a lot of luck, I would say, because we got real close to signing with a couple of those, but a lot of great lessons learned.
How did you know? Because you said you got close.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know that this is not a fit?
There were two specific examples, and both were different answers to that question, but I would say having people around me who remind me what is important when I start to get focused on the dollars of the round or what potentially the partners could be bringing from a resume standpoint, or fear that we won't be able to get it somewhere else. Having those trusted people on my team and my advisors and my board to say, remember why you're doing this.
Yeah. And you hit on something, maybe it's not out there enough. I think it's starting to become more common, talking about women only getting 2% of venture capital. Mm-hmm. How does that change how you raise capital in your approach? Or is it just you're going to face more rejection than a male counterpart?
Well, both of those are true.
Okay.
Yes, I change in that there's a system that's in the world of venture today, and knowing how to navigate that system as part of the 2% is part of my job. So me knowing kind of how close to the line I can toe it, but still stay in bounds for the intention of the company being able to continue to raise money is a balance that I'm always trying to strike. And what that means is how much of my authenticity I'm willing to suppress to play the game.
Yeah.
And looking and really being able to heighten my ability to sniff out those investors who want to change the 2% phenomenon, and orienting my time and energy around those individuals and vice versa.
Yeah.
Those who either don't get it, don't admit it, or don't want to be part of the change.
Yeah, you've been so intentional about what you're looking for. Yeah.
Very.
Well, I want to end with a couple last things. One being, we're at the Venture Summit.
Yeah.
And obviously, the reason here is to meet investors and,
Yeah.
and so forth. But what's the reason you're here? How do you approach, a conference like this? What makes this conference great?
Being a Colorado-based tech company is something I'm really proud of. I certainly, in the early days of Tilt, was given the advice that I should get to a coast and get there quickly if I really wanted to do this, and to prioritize this is where my family is and where we want to stay, and that's not something I was willing to do. I carry as a badge of honor. But to continue that, I feel a very strong self-imposed sense of obligation and almost pride to get to know more of the Colorado ecosystem. And even though the summit has brought in funds and investors from around the country, the fact that they're here is really important to me to be a part of the conversations. And I want to meet people in person every single time that I can. There's a different energy exchange. There's a different level of connection that you just can't get through a Zoom. So this is the only conference that I've attended in Colorado around the venture space. And it's the reason that I'm here is because I trust the people who told me this is where I should be. They're part of my investors. They're part of my advisors. And I really think that it's an intentional investment in continuing to build this Colorado ecosystem as a founder, as a female founder.
Yeah.
I want to do my part and hopefully make it easier for future female founders too.
That's great to hear. I have to end on your vision because it's such a strong North Star.
Yeah.
Where are you trying to take Tilt in the next 10 years? What's the vision? What's the goal?
Leave is broken around the world. And I knew that the first time that I started to research this space, and it was astounding to me that even though the U.S. is so painfully behind the rest of the industrialized world as it relates to legislation, the application and support of a leave is broken everywhere. So we will absolutely expand globally and help people take a leave humanely and fairly everywhere around the world.
Amazing. Going global.
Going global.
It's an awesome vision.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for taking the time. So excited to see what you build and making a brighter future for so many people.
Thanks for the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jen.